This is a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.
James and Jennifer Crumbley, the parents of Oxford High School shooter Ethan Crumbley, were each sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter today. We go now to the courtroom for that sentencing hearing.
I wasn't sure who had what statements, so they were scanned by my office and sent to everyone yesterday. I know that there are a number of individuals who want to address the court. I guess I should ask if at any time anybody feels like they need a break, they should tell me. All right? All right, so you have not objected, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to do that at this time?
Could we take a break now then?
Yeah,
before the impact statement?
Yeah, do you need a break? I guess I would ask, you've had time to review the written statements, correct?
Your Honor, we did get them late last night. I'm going to read over them during this brief break again. I have read over them once, but I'm going to read again just to ensure that there are no objections.
Yeah, I didn't have reason to believe that you didn't have copies of them, but they weren't necessarily funneled to the probation department. Some of them were sent directly to us. I've gotten letters from people from across the country that were very interesting. So,
Your Honor, may I say one thing regarding the victim impact statements? The victims are not in the courtroom required to provide their oral statement to us before they deliver it.
Correct.
And some chose to do that.
Correct.
Some chose not to, based on our prior experience with the shooter sentencing. Sometimes they chose to submit it, and it was different when they delivered it. So I just want to make it clear that we, under the Crime Victim Rights Act, nor do I think it's appropriate, have any control or edit or of what they're going to say, because it's their impact statement.
Yeah, I understand, and I have gotten some written statements from individuals who I believe intend to make an oral statement as well. So, yeah, that's up to the individual. All right.
Your Honor, with respect to the statements, initially, the defense for Mrs. Crumbley was concerned about the number of statements. We believe that the court can sort through what to take into consideration for this sentencing, and plus the court has lots of experience doing so. And so we do, if at some point there was an objection in terms of discussion, we don't have an objection at this time.
Yeah, you know what? You guys were on this email yesterday that discussed all of the individuals who would be giving oral statements.
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes.
And I know we all went back. I think we've all discovered a little glitch in the Crime Victims Rights Act that it's not specifically clear who's considered a victim under the Crime Victims Rights Act. There's some difference of opinion maybe, but I'm again relying on Albers that discusses OB3 and gives a broad definition of who a victim is. In any event, I am inclined to hear oral statements from all the individuals that were listed in the email that went to all of you last night. All right?
I have no objection to the individuals on that list, Your Honor.
All right.
Yeah, same here.
And I certainly would appreciate you making any objections to their statements at the end of their statement. Right?
Your Honor, I don't know if we need to approach on that, because there was some discussion by email about the objections.
Okay, well...
or maybe we can handle it during the break, Judge.
All right. When you say making an objection while the individual... I'm going to insist that everyone keep their statements directed at sentencing, for sure. Okay?
Your Honor, I don't anticipate, and I don't believe Ms. Smith would anticipate making objections to a victim impact statement. Obviously, things could arise, Your Honor.
Excuse me.
And obviously, we have duties to our clients as well. We wouldn't be doing it in a disrespectful way to anyone, Your Honor. But we would just ask, again, you've already reminded the court. I'm certain that the prosecutor's office has reminded anyone making a statement what the guidelines are in relation to those statements. So I don't anticipate having to make an objection, Your Honor, but obviously if one arises, an objection would have to be made, Judge.
All right. Do your clients need to go downstairs?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just two things briefly. There are no guidelines in the victim impact statement. It's how the victim's impacted. It's personal and unique, Judge.
Sure.
Obviously the court knows that. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
They have to be directed at sentencing, the statements.
In one housekeeping matter, we just need to add in, we can stipulate, the defense will stipulate, we add in the additional victim impact statements received last night, as well as James Crumbley's GED verification, just for the PSI.
Oh, I didn't ask you if you had any additions to the PSI.
That's all.
I'm sorry. Okay. His GED, and what else did you say?
His GED verification and the additional victim impact statements that weren't received by the department.
Yeah, I think we got some at about 6 o'clock last night, right?
Right.
So, yeah. If you're not in receipt of something, you should let me know. It was hard to determine at one time who was receiving what. So.
If maybe we can discuss with the prosecution who we should have impact statements from and determine whether or not we are missing any impact statements, the written impact statements, because we did receive some later last night. I don't know if...
Yeah, we sent those last night.
I received what the court sent and what's in the PSIR.
Correct. That's what I've received as well.
I don't think there's anything else
We received one this morning.
from Mr. Shilling.
Yes, sir.
But I believe Mr. Shilling is going to make an oral statement.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So I wasn't concerned about that.
Thank
I
you.
was referring to the written letters received by the court.
Okay.
That's what we got last
Last
night.
night.
Correct, Brenner? Okay.
Everything in my possession was sent.
Thank you very much for clarifying, Judge.
All right. All right. So both of the defendants are going to go downstairs. So I want everyone to remain seated during that. All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right, because they told me, they said, we're not intentionally blocking you. I can't see it. Well, because he knows. He's been down that road. Because yeah.
I'm going to make a suggestion. Make a left and over here and go on those eyes. Immediately outside.
18 miles, 20 miles, nothing's like that. It's the worst I ever think. There were 6 people there. No, doing Right.
Oh, no, I had a case since 2017. You haven't finished, yeah. I was fall asleep. Or I just, just didn't do
I used to not shut up.
I'm 12. I'm like 12 to 3. Yeah, that's not who's getting close. That's who's entering. catch fire. I correct when I do competitions and don't have
no matter what story you write, just don't the commenters have no idea. They'll turn it into a Trump Biden debate. And I'm like, the story has nothing to do with it. It always goes back, like I said, because no matter what. And
I'm sure the
oh yeah, adding your own parents, like
my brother sent a video from Texas yesterday. 2 hours before the eclipse, they filled up the medians of the freeway, and then like 5 minutes before the eclipse, they just started parking in the lanes on the freeway and getting out of their cars.
why?
They let the car limits for
No, it just the medians were full, and then they just needed more room to park, so they just started parking in the lanes on the
so
freeway.
they're still watching from
From the middle of the freeway. And he was telling me, because there's stretches of freeway that are just completely parked south. Hopefully we'll have self-driving cars by then.
And that's not the jobs, but they were
Oh, did you?
Yeah, you did.
They told me earlier I didn't.
They told me earlier I didn't have to be there. I wanted to just get
No, they're nothing if not thorough.
What's that?
They're nothing if not thorough.
I don't mind being
I have no issue with thorough.
that's the least. That's the least.
sounds like they're going to bring
We am Jennifer.
Okay. I'll be 9 after my girl. I would drive to London and we jump. Okay, I think we got to I live in did you put that in? Yeah. I didn't feel so strong. Almost a lot.
what's that? Absolutely, oh my God, on that.
Yeah, creative. Very weak. In the death of life, I mean, you can't choose any gathering.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was very unnecessary.
Not the lunch pail.
4-120 is a 2009 case which indicates that the sentencing guidelines and scoring of those guidelines are limited to the sentencing offense. Obviously, we have 4 separate counts in the information in this case. People versus Vanilla Machado, that's a hyphenated name, 489-412, is a 2011 case which states that you cannot aggregate offenses for the purposes of scoring. So where they're separate, in that case it was assaults. They couldn't aggregate the assaults for the purposes of scoring, that each assault had to be scored separately. In this case, the score for offense variable 9 is 100 for the multiple deaths that occurred for the deaths of the 4 students. I'm objecting to the scoring of 100 under Vanilla Machado because each death is supposed to be counted separately and individually and not aggregated for multiple deaths. And that was the only objection I wanted to make.
Mr. Keys, I'm going to allow you to address that. I think you already did, but...
I did, Judge, yes. And if probation has anything to add to, I defer to Ms. Wheeler, but we've already made this argument.
Ms. Wheeler?
Judge, only the sentencing guideline manual states that you cannot aggregate victims of separate crimes, but I think the defense argued earlier that this wasn't a separate crime. And the shooting occurred in the span of 8 minutes. It was not one shooting and then a half hour later. It was a very quick procession.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Again, I believe it was correctly scored. But...
Thank you for allowing me to make the record, Your Honor.
No problem. All right, and then with regard to victim impact statements. Sure.
Good morning.
I was doing a great job at the French pronunciation of your name, Nicole Soave, correct?
Correct.
Was that right?
Yes.
All right. What do you have to say?
I would like to start with the person that matters the most. Madisyn, she was a kind soul. She always had a smile on her face. She lit up the room when she walked in. Her laugh I could listen to all day. It was infectious. Her big sister skills were undeniable, and she took that role very seriously. Madisyn was smart, funny, loving, passionate, determined, and genuine. Her expectations were high, and at times we needed to let her fall. She needed to be reminded that not everything is perfect, even if she wanted it to be. Madisyn had an influence that most never achieved. Sometimes I would listen to a poem she wrote or watched her create art with no tracing, just pure talent. She would talk about college and what majors she would like to do and what would be most helpful to society. The passion that she had for everything and everyone was remarkable. I would catch myself watching her and thinking to myself, how lucky am I? I'm the one that gets to be her mom. What did I do to deserve a perfect person? She will be the best thing to ever happen to me at such a young age myself. I grew up because of her. We grew together. I learned from her. I mattered because of her. From the moment she was born, I promised myself that I would be there no matter what. Through the falls, heartbreak, letdowns, and struggles, I would be there. I would listen, learn, and love every moment. I wouldn't miss a thing. I would always protect her. On November 30th, 2021, exactly 17 years, 6 months, and 13 days made me break my first promise, and it will hurt for eternity. As her mom, I didn't protect her. First, I'd like to say thank you to the prosecution team. I say thank you to you all. Saying thank you really doesn't seem enough anymore. The countless hours you've worked, the time away from your family, and always taking our feelings into consideration. Karen and Mark, the work you've put into getting all the facts, speaking to us like we matter, and never wavering from your goal. It speaks volumes of the people you are, and I'm proud to call you a part of Madisyn's voice. Advocates and Jen, I'm not sure where to start. You've all seen me hit points in this tragedy that some days I wasn't sure who I was. One minute I'm laughing, next I'm crying, and sometimes I'm just silent. Either way, one thing stayed consistent. You always listened. Jen, you're not just a friend, you are family. My mind keeps going back to something during the trials. Something that is almost on repeat like a broken record. It's something as a mother I can't understand, and honestly I don't think any mother would understand. It was when Jennifer said it wouldn't do anything different. I'm putting a little emphasis on different, as I know life throws us things that are out of our control. But life takes turns and eventually puts them back in our control. Like giving you a hint when something needs to change. I want to compare a few things to see through my perspective. As I know things are different about the events and how we see them from the events on November 30th. While your son was hearing voices and asking for help, I was helping Madisyn pick out her senior classes. While you were purchasing a gun for your son and leaving it unlocked, I was helping her finish her college essays. While you dropped him off at school, upset that he was failing class, I texted Madisyn, drive safe, it's slick outside, have a good day. When you got a call to me at the school about your son and how it interfered with your day, I was rearranging my schedule so I could take Madisyn to get her oil changed for the first time. When you left without hesitation and not taking him home, I was worried if she'd be okay driving in the first snowfall of the season and if she brought a coat. When you walked out of the office with a steady pace after hearing an active shooter, I ran from my home and started driving, trying not to break the law. When you were on the phone for 10 minutes with each other trying to figure out where the gun was, I was on the phone with her father and family trying to figure out where she was. When you left the Myres without knowing where your son was, I was desperately trying to get there as soon as possible. When you knew the gun was missing, you called the police, knowing it was your son who took it. I was having family call every hospital describing what she looked like. When you texted, Ethan, don't do it, I was texting Madisyn, I love you, please call Mom. When you found out about the lives your son took that day, I was still waiting for my daughter in a parking lot. When you questioned the reasoning on why you would do this, I was questioning if I was doing enough to find her. When you got a chance to speak with your son, seeing him alive and showing no support, I was watching families reunite with their children, waiting for my moment. When you asked him why, I was waiting for the answer onto why the last bus never came. When the police showed up at your house, you didn't understand why they were there. And I was asking police if they checked every possible location and if I could go search too. When you texted about not losing your job and you needed a lawyer, I was still calling my daughter because she came first in all parts of my life. When you could leave your house, I was still a prisoner in Myres. When you worried about what people thought of you and feeling threatened, I was learning your son threatened my daughter and fatally shot her in the head. When you drove to get your burner phones for communication, I was laying on the floor in Myres for hours crying because I forgot how to speak. When you checked into your first hotel, I was telling Madisyn's 11-year-old sister she was gone. When you cared more about yourself and getting alcohol and supplies, I was a identifying my daughter in a medical office, wishing I could take her place. While you were hiding, I was planning her funeral. And while you were running away from your son and your responsibilities, I was forced to do the worst possible thing a parent could do. I was forced to say goodbye to my Madisyn. We all see things different. Some prioritize and some don't. Accountability can only be given if you actually try it in the first place. As a parent, we all make mistakes. This is a normal way of life. Usually when mistakes happen, we learn from them. We try to fix it or talk it over. But continuing to make the same mistake over and over again is no longer a mistake, it's a choice. That becomes a decision. Those decisions that you made ultimately took my daughter's life. Because you decided that you didn't want to parent and listen to your son. You took the right away for me to be a mother. You do not get to decide that. You do not get those privileges. You are not above anyone. I love being a mom. It's the one thing that I'm truly great at. You cared more about your well-being than the one life that you should put above anyone, your child. And because of that, you both took 4 beautiful children away from this world. Being a parent is the part of life that you should hold to the highest level. It's an honor to be a mother or a father. Even when you think you have done your best, you continue to do more. Unfortunately, you never made it to level 1. You say you wouldn't do anything different. Well, that really says on what type of parents you are, because there's a lot of things I would do different. But the one thing I would have wanted to be different was to take that bullet that day so she could continue to live the life she deserved. You show no remorse, no respect, or compassion for our family. The same traits that you've bestowed upon your son. The traits that you have torn my family into pieces. The lack of compassion that you have shown is outright disgusting. Not only did your son kill my daughter, but you both did as well. The words involuntary should not be a part of your offense. Everything you did that day, months prior, and days after were voluntary acts of your son to commit a murder. Not just one, but multiple. Shaking your head during a verdict is the utmost disrespectful thing I have ever witnessed. At that moment, you felt your life is more valuable than my daughter's. I will say that will never be true. You decided that parenting wasn't a priority. Putting your child first should be the only priority. You didn't, and because of that, I've lost my daughter. I had to get answers after her death. Watching the video, hearing testimony on how your son executed my daughter, watching him put the gun to her head as she covered her head and pulled the trigger. Seeing pictures of her laying in her own pool of blood, knowing her body sat there for hours, that rigor mortis had already started to set in. So that when I identified her, her body was in a state I couldn't imagine. Hearing her sister scream over and over again night after night, watching her family and her friends fall apart. You created all of this. You created your son's life, which then allowed this to be his path, which should be yours as well. You don't get to look away. You don't get to cry. I didn't get that choice. You failed as parents. The punishment that you face will never be enough. It will never bring her back. It will never be a loss that you have suffered, and it will never heal the pain. Because one day you're going to be able to see your son, visit, hear his voice, possibly laugh, maybe see him grow. I will never see that again. The so-called loss that you say you have suffered doesn't even compare to the loss of a child. Your Honor, I request that the maximum sentence be enforced, as it will never come close to the life sentence I was given. A life sentence that I didn't ask for, but a choice that was made for me. A life that I will suffer because of their negligence. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Good morning. Can you tell me your name?
Yes, Jill Soave.
All right, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Judge Cheryl Matthews, for your time on this case. I know it hasn't been easy on both. Thank you also to Karen McDonald and the entire prosecution team. We appreciate your efforts. Your Honor, my trauma and devastation is hard to put to words, but I have done so in my letter to you. I would also like to mention Justin's brothers, Nathan and Clay. They are now forced to live a life without their beloved middle brother, Justin. My son Justin was the least deserving of his fate. He was the best son that any mother could pray for. Justin was brave, spending his final moments protecting a fellow student. He was hardworking, a lettered athlete, a top honor student. He was kind and inclusive to all. He was full of love and joy. His future was so very bright and full of possibilities. His passing has touched so many family members, friends, students, and the community in general. The ripple effects of both James and Jennifer's failures to act have devastated us all. This tragedy was completely preventable. If only they had done something, Your Honor, anything, to shift the course of events on November 30th, then our four angels would be here today, and Justin would be getting ready to celebrate his 20th birthday on the 18th of this month. If only, Your Honor, they had taken their son to get counseling instead of buying him a gun. If only they had secured that gun. If only they had spoken up that day in the counseling office. If only they had checked his backpack. If only they had taken him home or taking him to counseling instead of abandoning him at that school, I wouldn't be standing here today. Your Honor, I don't know what's in their hearts. I'm not a mind reader. But I only know the facts of this case. And the facts of this case, both cases, have been deeply disturbing. What I would like to share with the shooter's parents is an example of what love looks like between a mother and her son. This is what Justin wrote to me on one of the last birthdays that we celebrated together. Dear Mom, words cannot describe how thankful I am for you. You have been nothing but an amazing mother for as long as I can remember. Thank you for being a role model. Thank you for showing me what it's like to never give up. You inspire me to do better each and every day. I love you so much. Love, Justin. It is devastating and heartbreaking that it doesn't appear that either of you cherished or even wanted your son. But I wholeheartedly wanted and cherished mine. You have failed your son and you have failed us all. This failure had deadly consequences that can never be undone, that can never be made right. I am asking, Your Honor, for the maximum sentence allowed. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Shilling.
Good morning. Shilling, Justin's dad. So Honorable Judge Matthews, for the second time in 6 months, I find myself standing in front of a packed courtroom, a victim. This time, I'm here to address a different judge and the parents of the deeply disturbed teenager that murdered my son. This is my opportunity to try to describe just how much the horrific event that took place back on November 30th, 2021 has impacted my life. It's my belief that an impact statement should not just describe how this particular event impacted me. I feel that it should also be impactful towards all who hear it. And in your case, Judge, I hope these words impact you in a way that influence your decisions here today. As I look around at all the lawyers, police officers, media folks, and other victims, I can't help but ask myself, what could I possibly say that this whole scenario doesn't already say? This is messed up. Most people will never have to make a victim impact statement for the course of their lives. And the fact that the victims speaking here today are doing so for the second time in 6 months should speak volumes in and of itself. This is not normal. Living a life like this is not normal. So how does it affect a normal guy? To be completely honest with you, it remains a rather difficult and uncomfortable question to answer. In my previous impact statement, I've expressed many of my day-to-day struggles, from uncontrolled emotional outbreaks to sleepless nights to not being able to focus on the normal daily. Yeah, it's fair to say that I live every day with pain, anger, heartache, regret, anxiety, stress, you name it. They are all there, wreaking havoc in my once normal life. They say that time heals all wounds. Well, we're coming up on 2.5 years now, and I can assure you that the wounds are still as fresh as they were on that tragic day. And with this hole that has been left in my life still glaringly obvious, I fight every day to not lose more of myself within that very hole. I've spent the last 30 years of my life busting my butt to support a family, raise children, and try to set myself up for some peace and quiet in the golden years of life. But the unthinkable has happened. And that peace and quiet I've worked so hard for may never come to be. At least not to the degree that I've always imagined it. Literally every single aspect of my life has been affected by this tragedy. And I could spend a long time describing in detail just how it has impacted me, but it seems like it would be way easier for me to just tell you how this tragedy hasn't impacted me, because there's simply nothing on that list. Now that the verdict is out on this monumental case, I feel strongly that it has caught the attention of most parents across the country. The overwhelming facts in this case were all that was necessary to prove that James and Jennifer Crumbley not only neglected their son by failing to get the necessary mental care that was clearly needed, provided him the very tools necessary to carry out those heinous acts of violence. It was these very facts that allowed not just one, but 2 full juries to find both of them guilty of involuntary manslaughter. I will always maintain the opinion that the facts that were presented in these cases were strong enough to convince any jury of their same regardless of where the trial was held. As I have maintained throughout the course of the past couple of years, being the parent of a murdered child tends to cause you to seek out the maximum penalties allowed for each guilty verdict derived from any of the criminal charges. I think this stance is completely justified and would be so for any parent in the same position as mine. However, this is a court of law where a person is innocent until proven guilty, and the defendant has the right to dispute the facts of the charges against them. That being said, during the course of both of these trials, I did my best to capture every word and process all the facts. This is important because there is value in these facts, not just in the thousands and thousands of man-hours invested in gathering, processing, and organizing the evidence, but also for being able to use that evidence to establish the cold, hard truth of this tragic situation, that James and Jennifer Crumbley failed in their parental responsibilities as they pertain to the shooter, who was their son. The cold truth that shows that they did nothing to address the obvious signs of the deteriorating mental state of mind clearly present within their son. And of course, the very hard truth that shows that they provided their son with exactly what he wanted to use to do what he did, and failed miserably to secure it. One would probably think that in order for something like this, or something of this magnitude to even happen at all, there would have to be a ton of things that went wrong. Although there were some things that definitely went wrong that day, for several of those things, I believe that if they had been handled correctly, we wouldn't be here right now. And James and Jennifer Crumbley carried the bulk of the responsibility needed to handle those things. During their trials, the overall similarities between the two were evident, and I believe this is why they were both convicted. Numerous facts that were the same for both trials showed clearly that the parents failed their son, and ultimately the entire community. With Jennifer, the thing that resonates most is that she stated that even knowing what she knew now, she still wouldn't have changed a thing. I almost died when she said that. 4 precious lives were lost at the hands of her son, by means that she helped provide. She saw the drawing of murder, drawn with the hands of her son. She sat and heard the request of the counselor and did nothing. And she still says that she wouldn't have changed a thing. I just don't understand how someone can be that heartless to make a statement like that. The blood of our children is on your hands too. This is but one reason why I feel that Jennifer should receive the maximum amount for her sentence. The facts presented should be all the others that you should need. With her distinct lack of remorse and overall unethical understanding of the tragedy, I feel that the maximum amount of time available is needed for her to be able to fully comprehend the gravity of her actions and the lack thereof. With James, there were a couple of things that jumped out at me in particular, but one thing that is the toughest to digest is the fact that when the verdict was being read, he sat there and shook his head in total disagreement, as if to suggest that the jury was wrong and that there were no grounds for a guilty verdict. I was dumbfounded to see him shake his head with such disbelief, an action that only suggests that he truly believes he did nothing wrong. How could you possibly think that? 4 precious lives were lost at the hands of your son by means that he helped provide. He saw the drawing of the murder drawn with the hands of the son. He sat and heard the request of the counselor and did nothing. I just don't understand how someone can so arrogantly dawdle in a pool of self-pity without being able to say one thing to justify themselves. The blood of our children is on your hands too. This is but one reason why I feel James should receive the maximum amount for his sentence. The facts presented should be all the others that you need. With this distinct lack of remorse and overall unethical understanding of the tragedy, I feel that the maximum amount of time available is needed for him to be able to fully comprehend the gravity of his actions and the lack thereof. Throughout the course of all of this, and I'm talking from way back in the beginning, I just can't get over the fact that this tragedy was completely avoidable. There were some pretty obvious signs that were completely overlooked, and the bulk of the responsibilities to address those signs lied on the parents, and they failed. Across the board, failed. They willfully ignored the cries of their child and selfishly put themselves before helping him. This type of blatant disregard is undeniably unacceptable. It is a large reason why the events of that day were able or were allowed to happen, and another reason why I feel they both need the maximum amount of time available to be able to fully comprehend the gravity of their actions and the lack thereof. that having children is a big responsibility. Although extremely rewarding, it starts out pretty scary. I mean, let's face it, they don't exactly come with instructions. There's no mute button, and unfortunately, no pause or rewind buttons either. Oh yeah, and there are times in the beginning that they really snap. Yet we still have them. We still want that responsibility, even though it's not very clear what it all entails. But how can we accept that responsibility and not act responsibly towards that child? It doesn't add up. A child, even if he is an oopsie child, deserves the same amount of love, compassion, and care that every other child gets. A child deserves someone who is confident enough to lead by example. Because let's face it, it wasn't that child's choice to come into this world. You made them, and it's your responsibility to teach them how to live. It's your responsibility to set a good example. It's plain and simple, just like that, ladies and gentlemen. And the sooner we can figure that out, the better we all will be. Being a parent is hard work, but if it's done correctly, it can be the most rewarding work you ever do. There is no one that can tell you how to do it, because each child is so precious and unique. I mean, there's no other one like them in the entire world, and that says a lot. So cherish your one and onlys, and never give them up. Never give up on them, excuse me. The results of doing so can be catastrophic and can affect the lives of so many other people. So I ask for you all to go home today and hug your kids and make sure they know you are there for them, and make sure that they are all right. It's so crucial for the whole of our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shilling. Raina, right?
Yeah.
Raina St. Juliana.
Our 10-year-old little brother had to learn how to write a eulogy for his sister before he even learned how to write essays. November 30th, 2021, all our parents did was send us off to school. Yet the next time they see Hana is to recognize her lifeless body in a medical examiner's office. I met up with Hana and a friend during school that day. When we split ways to go back to class, I just looked back and smiled. I didn't say goodbye. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to remind her that I love her, that she's my everything, the person I want to walk through life with side by side. I thought our future was a given. Of course, she'd play her first high school basketball game that night, get ready for all the other school dances, have her JV and varsity season for all the sports she played, get her driver's license, play her lacrosse season, have her first date, prom, graduation. She never got a chance for any of that. She didn't even get her 15th, 16th, 17th, or 18th birthday. These are only some of the high school experiences she never got to have, but it is absolutely nothing compared to the rest of everything she had going for her future. That list is eternal. His life had only started to begin. 12:51 p.m., November 30th, 2021, that was the moment I became aware of the fragility of her mortality. Hana, who was healthy, Hana, who was only 14, shot 4 times. 12.5% of the bullets shot that day were at her. She took her last breath in her own pool of blood in a school she hadn't even been in for 3 months. Alone for 7 minutes while police passed by her, bleeding out as a security guard failed to put a tourniquet on her, dying as EMS took more than 10 minutes after the shooter had been detained to even give aid to her. Our Japanese grandma would often worry about anything bad happening to us because she knew how dangerous it is here compared to Japan. She told me on FaceTime that Hana would respond with a laugh, saying, "Don't worry, I'm a fast runner, I'll outrun them." It wasn't possible for Hana to outrun the bullets bought by you, Jennifer Crumbley, which were fired by the 9mm Sig Sauer that you, James, gifted to your son. Both used to murder Hana, Justin, Tate, and Madisyn. The fact is, no matter what you try to make yourself believe, Jennifer, you did fail as a parent, both of you. To love and to be loved, that is the human experience. It was up to you guys to show your son that. Instead of giving quality time and compassion, you gift your son a gun you knew causes extraordinary damage. There's a reason your kid didn't use the other 2 firearms or the .22 ammunition you own. I believe your actions cannot even be confined into the word failure. Your mistakes created our everlasting nightmare. So yes, you are still a danger to society, because even after serving 2 years, you have yet to admit to your wrongdoings. And we know that when we do not learn from our mistakes, we repeat history. You call yourself a victim. The difference between you and Hana, Justin, Tate, and Madisyn, you and my family, you and all the students there that day, is that we didn't have a hand in causing this. You caused the most cruel thing I could ever imagine. You guys made loving Hana so painful. That is not a narrative, that is reality. For that, unless you have a time machine or the ability to stop time, there is no existing punishment or rehabilitation that will ever be enough. Because there is no way that the one life I have, I now have to live without Hana, my little sister, my best friend, my other half. To me, that makes the maximum sentence being 15 years too short. Hana didn't even have 15 years to live. Jennifer, you stated that even after knowing everything you know now, you wouldn't do anything different. I cannot fathom that. I would do anything to hear her footsteps coming up the stairs. You don't have to roll your eyes, it's on video that she said that. To not have an empty seat at the dining table, to have her come into my room and ask which clothes to order, to see her napping on the couch, to laugh and share a look when we accidentally say the same thing at the same time. There's not a day that goes by that I wish I hadn't run out of that building. If I knew what I know now, I would do everything differently in a heartbeat. I hope time makes you think differently. One day, I hope you would have chosen to care for your son, teach him how to love and to be loved, that you would not choose to buy the bullets that enter children's bodies, that you would not choose to omit relevant important information to the counselor Sean Hopkins and Dean of Students Nicholas Ejak that could have helped their incompetent brains in one shared brain cell to decide to act and search the backpack, that you wouldn't still choose to hide from accountability when you're the reason we had to hide for our lives, that you would choose to save Hana, Justin, Tate, and Madisyn. Like my mother said, both of you should implore that even on your worst days, it's the tomorrow Hana doesn't get. The tomorrow she wanted to live so badly, the tomorrow that she should have. I can never do Hana justice when talking about her. She's all I want to talk about, and yet I would need a lifetime and still wouldn't have the right words to capture incandescence, humor, thoughtfulness, kindness, or loyalty. She's always there for you, helping without a second thought. She's always sharing, whether it's her smile, her food, her clothes, her crafts, her joy. She's funny. It's a given. She brings people together. Whether it's her contagious laughter or sarcastic wit, you will be laughing right along with her. She's noticing the small things, new shoes, new haircut, cute jewelry, but even more importantly, she makes you feel seen. She's extremely spirited. Her energy is unmatched on or off the court. She dresses up every holiday, every spirit day, the first one to put up Christmas lights, or any lights for that matter, not even realizing she was a light for so many others. She's the one who would not only playfully roll her eyes and smile when I would say I'm taller than her as I look up to her. Not only did I look up to her physically, because yes, she was taller, but as a whole, as a human being. She isn't perfect, but she's Hana, and to me that's as close as you can get.
More courtroom coverage coming in our next segment.
This has been a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.